Hello, hello. Welcome to day 10 of Rhythm Over Intensity. Today's question is, how do you know you're betraying yourself to keep the peace? For me, as someone who's definitely people pleased a lot in her life and has been in recovery and growing out of it, one of the key things I notice is that it's never, or almost never, a big thing. It's not this big self-sacrifice unless you're quite far away from yourself and you are still in that place and everyone's on their own journey. But as time went on, it stopped being the big things. It stopped being like these big things I would sacrifice, but it's the small things. And it's small things that you slowly chip away. And as you chip away at yourself, as I would chip away at myself, I would notice this slow growing, expanding resentment that would fester in my chest, that would slowly alter how I would interact, be that in my relationships, friendships, at work, wherever I was, that I was people pleasing and just sacrificing myself in order to keep peace. I would slowly start being more passive aggressive, not in big ways, just in small ways, in the energy with which I would approach life and the situations that I was in. It would slowly be just more fighting in my head. A big thing I notice is when I feel unsafe and I'm sacrificing myself, I start to imagine fights in my head. I start to imagine myself defending someone or myself from someone, from some kind of perpetrator, be that verbally or physically. And just there's all this kind of inflammation, all this fighting goes on in my head and this kind of tightness in my body. And slowly I would just start moving away from my very joyful, playful, sweet, kind self. I'd start moving towards more shutdown. A big thing as well, a bigger red flag for me is that I start to be less expressive. I limit my joy, my humor, my expression of self. Because in the moments where I think I need to give parts of myself away in order for things to be all right, intuitively my body, my soul knows that's not right. And slowly this backwards pull happens where I slowly become less and less of myself and more this reactive person, more of this someone who is angry and resentful and not taking responsibility, and resentful of myself for not taking responsibility and choosing to sacrifice myself just to keep the peace, just to appease someone else and make them happy, or at least not make them sad. And even the other night, a similar situation happened where I just kept taking someone's jokes instead of just shifting to a different part of the group earlier. I ended up leaving at some point where it got too much. I just picked up my bag and left. But I was livid for a while. I was quite like worked up and angry because I'd not moved earlier. I'd tolerated it because I wanted to stick with those guys. I wanted to chat and laugh, but the person kept making those jokes. And normally they're not, I don't really care about them. Like I even laugh at them. But in the moment I wasn't in the mood. It was chipping down. I don't always want to be responding the way, like in that kind of bantery, reactive way. But I stayed and I stayed and I stayed and I allowed it, only to end up being so angry, so inflamed for a little bit, storming back home as well. And I'm learning that it's on the microscopic levels, that being present with yourself and honoring your own boundaries and limits and advocating for them, it is on those levels that we build the relationship with our boundaries. It's like that saying, take care of the minutes, take care of the hours, the days will take care of themselves. By beginning to honor the small things, learning to comfortably say no to something, even something small, something that isn't that inconvenient, but you don't want to do it. And maybe the fact that you don't want to do it will maybe be inconvenient for someone else. But can you learn to disappoint others? Not to seek out that disappointment towards others, But can you be okay that someone else is upset due to a decision you made? Can you be okay that you are not responsible for how someone else navigates their emotions? And another thing I'm learning for myself is allowing myself to want and to hold and to have that sense of peace and sovereignty that comes from honoring those small things. In so many ways, I was taught not to. I was taught to give so much of myself away that that was what peace was, that was what safety was, that was what was familiar, and still is in so many ways. But it isn't. There's this kind of like itch and festering and tightness whenever I do that. But it's familiar. So as I learn to lean into the unfamiliar, as I learn to lean into the uncomfortable comfort, into the unfamiliar safety, I'm learning that saying no is important. I'm learning that I'm allowed to do that. And I'm learning that the discomfort I feel around comfort in this moment in time isn't a bad thing, but rather it's me slowly stretching, me slowly learning to hold more of what it is I want to have in life, what it is I deserve to have. To round back, as I am continuing to learn to talk about things on different days and different moods, for myself, I know I'm sacrificing myself to keep the peace. When there's just a slow kind of like festering begins to, the slow just pop in my chest. It's like a small thing. It starts to build up and it grows and festers and it makes me go quiet. It cuts off the joyful expression. It cuts off this flow of love that I have been cultivating a passageway for. It halts it. It throws rocks into the river. And it doesn't flood. It kind of, something else happens where it's just stuck and murky and I just feel tight and angry and frustrated and my mind starts to race and I start to just be less present and more in my head. Thank you for watching. Hope you have enjoyed this beautiful forest that I am so in love with. And I will see you in the next one. Have a wonderful day.